Leadership development is creating a space where others feel safe and encouraged to think. We're in systems, we've been ingrained in systems that teach us not to think, that teach us to repeat our thoughts. That's why we get stuck in the problems we have, because we're not actually thinking it through. We're actually just repeating the same thoughts that just keep us running into the wall. But leaders, and let me say even specifically, a coaching style, when you start to learn a coaching style in your leadership, you'll ask questions in a way that teach people to think. So welcome back to another week. My name is Poʻokela Mossman, and I am once again excited. These topics have been real conversations. This isn't just Google searches or flipping through a chart or just randomly picking. This is what we're bringing to you on these episodes is actual conversations where we're seeing people that are struggling with it and we're helping them kind of overcome that. So that's why I'm excited to kind of open this up in more dialogue and to kind of share this here on the podcast. Today's topic might sting a little. It might sting a little, right? But but sometimes honestly, that's the best ones, right? If you're really in this to grow, that's the ones. You don't run away. If you're the person that understands that that's how I grow, is I actually face things exactly how they are. Like I don't just, I don't overly make it super nice, or I don't, on the other end make it really hard and just kind of self-sabotage. I understand that I am willing to look at it as it is. And sometimes that does sting, but it helps us grow. So my question to you, if you're listening today, is if your team can't make a decision without you, are you really leading them, or are you creating dependency? You see, we're going to talk about this transition from run to roll. There's 4 seasons in the book that I authored called Post Check, where you can actually create a healthy leadership framework that protects you from toxic environments, right? A lot of people want to go out there and change an environment. And I always say, first thing, you got to protect your environment. You got to protect yours. And how you do that is you understand these 4 seasons. This right here is a game changer, right? The 4 seasons are your run season, your roll season, your refine season, and your rejoice season. That's the 4 seasons of healthy leadership in that framework. Today, we're going to talk about just the transition I see most leaders get stuck in. And that's when you're going from a run season to a roll season. A lot of people think it's more like, I need more rest, I need more time off. And the truth is, if you have never gone from a run season to a roll season, it's not so much rest you need. You need to learn some principles to actually get you out of the run season. You got to stop running. That's what it is, right? A lot of people get promoted into a leadership role because of what they have produced. Because let's just say they run fast, right? They get things done. And because of what they have done, they get promoted to a place of responsibility. And here's the tricky thing: to get others to get things done, not themselves. Completely different skill set. So this transition is where people get stuck because they're still operating with the same principles. They never really understood that this is where you need to make that shift. And one of those things is where you become the answer to every problem. People come to you when they have a problem and you can give them the answer. And here's the thing where it gets deceiving, because most of the time you're right, but you also have a limit. That's the challenge. It worked when it was just you. Now, when others are coming to you, you just can't serve everyone by being that bottleneck. You can't be the sole source of the information. You can't be the only one, because then you only create dependency. So, if you're still listening in here, that tells me that you're someone that's willing to dive into it. I got 4 points that I'm going to give you on today's episode, and it'll help you actually get that transition from a run season to a roll season. So just to clarify, your run season, if you're not familiar with it, if you read the book, you'll see it in there. But your run season is basically where a lot of people, you are the first one in and the last one out. You're the one you're the chief reminding officer. You're constantly driving, right? This season takes the most energy for a leader, right? You're constantly going ahead down. You're casting vision. You're repeating yourself over and over again. You're doing a lot of the work. You are being the example by also being the voice. So there's a lot going on in this season, and it's crucial. It is crucial. Let me clarify, because some people, they get into a new leadership role, and though their personality might not be, they think it's a personality thing. They come in and they say, Poʻokela, I want others to talk. And I say, that's fine. That's great. But you got to understand that your words are very different when it comes from you. Like, If you're in a certain role, you carry a certain weight to those words. So there's some things that you need to be the voice for. Everyone else in your team can say it, but it's going to sound different when it comes from you. So you got to be willing to do that. You can't always run to the shadows and push everyone in the light. It seems noble in a way, but it doesn't help the team. You have to know when your voice is helpful and when it's not helpful. So the 4 points I'll give you for today's episode, we're talking about where you don't want to be that bottleneck. You want to shift from the run season and the row season. Here's the beautiful part of it. The row season is when you start to actually develop leaders. This is when you identify them and you help people grow. That's really what leadership is all about, right? We lead ourselves, but before we start to lead others, we need to make a shift in that, right? We need to understand why I call it a roll season is because this is where momentum takes the front seat, not you having to drive it. When you can wake up and things are moving because others have been developed. You see, the 4 points I'll give you, I'll start with the first one here. If you're taking notes, write this down. Every answer that you give is one less opportunity that they have to grow. I want you to see this in a way as a deposit into a certain account. Either you're depositing into your run season and you'll continue to run, or you're going to start to make some deposits into your roll season. And the only way you make a deposit into there is by not giving an answer. I know. It sounds a little for those of you that are used to and comfortable in that place. It seems like I'm not helping them. You actually are. You're actually helping them by not giving them the answer, but you're still helping them find it. You see, there's a big difference there. You're still helping them find the answer rather than being the answer. It's where you take your seat from being the hero to being the guide. You see, you don't need to be the hero anymore because the hero goes home by themselves. The hero has to show up tomorrow and there's no one else to save the world, right? When you're the guide, you start to develop more leaders. You start to say, okay, maybe I don't want to give you I might know it, but I'm going to help you think this through. And this is where, if you're writing this down, guys, I'm going to give it to you right now. And I'm going to repeat it also. This is a game changer if you really understand this, right? Leadership development is creating a space where others feel safe and encouraged to think. We've been ingrained in systems that teach us not to think, that teach us to repeat our thoughts. That's why we get stuck in the problems we have, because we're not actually thinking it through. We're actually just repeating the same thoughts that just keep us running into the wall. But leaders, and let me say even specifically, a coaching style, when you start to learn a coaching style in your leadership, you'll ask questions in a way that teach people to think. Now, you got to create a safe space. You have to create a space that's safe. Did I say that right? And the reason is because most people, they'll start to question it. Like, what do you, just give me the answer. What do just tell me what it is. And they're used to you being in a run season. Don't worry. It's okay. Stick with the plan. Stick with the plan. Help them think. Help them think it through. Encourage them. And guess what? Their first thought might not be the right answer, but you're helping them think again, right? It depends on how long they haven't done this work, but it might not be, but you're still helping them think. You ask them another question. You help them. That's why you're a guide in this process. Let's go to the second point. Second point, questions build ownership. This is going to tie right into that first point, right? Questions build ownership. When I get to an organization, they say, Poʻokela, we need help in ownership. Nobody's owning anything. And I watch, and when I sit in meetings, I can tell right off the bat, 90% of the meeting is statements from senior leadership. Senior leadership sits there and is like a bulletin board, right? It's like a live memo where it's just statements. That is just one-way communication going out. There is no questions for feedback loops. There is no conversation. There is no community that's being built. There's no questions. That's why there's no ownership. You see, when you ask people questions, you get them to think, and then you help them make choices on what they thought. You guide them in that process. And what you do is, it sounds a little like this, right? Stop saying, do this. Start asking, what options have you considered? You see, now they're looking at options. You're actually opening their aperture into thinking about other things. Is there something you haven't thought about yet or haven't tried? You see, those questions start to help them think. What seems to get in the way every time that you try this? Now you're helping them to think and to identify these roadblocks in that process. They're doing that, therefore there's ownership. Here's number three. Number three for today. Coaching creates thinkers. I touched on this a little because I wanted to set this up. Coaching creates leaders. Guys, learning a coaching skill set, and I want to be cautious with this because the more I'm in this industry, the more I start to see people brand themselves as coaches, and they're not coaches. A lot of people are trying to coach from a movie clip that is hype and motivational and forceful. It's not coaching. Great coaches are great listeners. Great coaches are curious. Great coaches help you think things through. There's a very dis- there's a distinct difference. It's almost so clear when you see it between a thought and actually thinking. You see, we have millions of thoughts every day, right? I forget the stat, but go ahead and Google it up, right? There's a stat that shows we have X amount of thoughts every single day, but they're the same thoughts. That's why we hit the same problems. So learning to actually think, to create a space that your team actually thinks things through, has new thoughts, has new brainstorming, right? That's all about, that's a coaching environment. And that's what happens when great leaders understand this, that coaching creates thinkers. When you can create thinkers, you create more ownership in your organization. Therefore, you also develop more people that gets you out of the run season into, say it, the roll season, where you start to get momentum. People start to understand I can make a decision and I can figure my way through this, right? Because I'm not just one thought process. I'm not just regurgitating the same thoughts. I'm actually thinking in this process. Let me actually give you a few more points on this I wrote down. Don't think and repeat the same steps. Yeah, we covered that. Okay, so next one. So a lot of times that you might get pushback with this, because if they're very used to, a lot of people get comfortable. They love you as the run leader in that season, but that's not healthy for you to stay there. So when you have to make this shift over to the roll season, some people might give you pushback. That doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. That just means they love you when you're the one running and you're saying run with me, right? So don't take that pushback that they give you as something is wrong. Take that as a way as like what you're doing is that you're creating it to be a little uncomfortable for them. But it's okay, because comfort creates dependency. That's why people get stuck in a run season. Guys, this is huge. This is why a lot of times when I did a lot of work in the beginning trying to help organizations avoid burnout, I try to figure out, like, what do they do on their day off? How do they detach and do something so they can come back refreshed? The thing is, if you're still doing the same things on your on days, you're still burning out, right? It's not what you're doing on your off days, it's what you're doing on your on days that you're burning out. So when you're on, you can't be always running. And if you're creating dependency, that also creates comfort. A lot of times teams love that because my leader's running all over the place. My boss, my manager is running all over the place, and they're comfortable. So when you start to ask them questions, they may push back a little. That's okay, because growth initially is a bit uncomfortable, but growth actually creates confidence. That's why you see confident teams is when they actually did this transition from a run season to a roll season. They're much more confident. It's not an ego-based confidence. It's an assurance that I can trust my thinking, right? I don't have to just relay on my thoughts, my old thoughts. I can actually think this through. I have a new problem. You know what? I can think this through, right? We can think this through. Imagine if your team thought like that. Let's go. Last point, number 4. Stop measuring your value by how needed you are. Ouch. If there's anything that stings, it might be that one. And I'll tell you right now, I've been doing this for over 2 decades and I still need to hear that. I still need to hear. It is so easy. It's so attractive to get caught into when people need you. Let's be honest here, right? I don't know what it is in biology or human, but it is when people need you. It feels good. It feels good in a way because, oh, so and so, it may even feel popular. It might feel, like it might give you this sense that you're important. But my friend, let's be honest here. We're having real conversations. We have to get away from that. We have to be wise enough to realize when that's happening to ourselves, but also when you see it on our teams, when you see some leaders that might be the bottleneck because they're measuring their value on how needed and important they think they are because they're needed, right? Because they're needed, they think they're important, and they're drawing this incorrect conclusion, this math problem in their mind. I know that might sting a little, but the truth is that some people secretly enjoy being the bottleneck. They actually enjoy it. They enjoy that everyone has to come to them. And what happens is that that's what will stop your organization or your team from growing. It'll create a very toxic culture because now because if you want to attract thinkers, guess what? Thinkers will leave. Thinkers will go somewhere else. And you get a bunch of people that's not willing to think, that has no ownership in organization, that's just blaming the bottleneck. And the bottleneck secretly loves being the bottleneck. Crazy, right? Right? I think you're tracking. If you're still listening in, this is making sense to you. So I'll give you an action step today. Your action step today as we go ahead and go back into the real world and get things going here. Thanks for spending the time on this podcast. This means a lot that you're dedicating some time to listen and to stay connected and to just kind of grab upon these real-time conversations and principles and actually healthy leadership elements that just create a space of where leaders can thrive more, right? Where it's sustainable. It's not flash in the pan. This is a mature lens of leadership, my friend. If you haven't got it yet, check out the episodes. You'll see these conversations seem to be a little more different. This isn't high marketing trying to just get views. This is some real talk. I'm looking for a community that's willing to have some real conversations to sustain leadership. Here's your action steps. Next time you have a problem that's presented to you, before you jump out and answer that problem, even if you know the answer, pause. Pause and be curious. Ask at least 2 clarifying questions. Even if you think you have it all covered up, just ask a question clarifying. Is this what I'm hearing? Right? You're clarifying what you think you're hearing. And then that person can ask a question, pause, stay curious, ask a question. That's it. That's the action. That's the action. The more you do that, the more you start to see different leaders that are ready for that. Which ones will love? And guys, this is it. This is it. If you're still listening, I'm going to give you the best one today. The reason why you want to do this is how you identify your upcoming leaders. Whatever ROI or reports that you have or resume, let me say, that seems fancy, forget all that. This is real time tracking. When you see a leader that's excited to think, that doesn't push back, that dives into this, my friend, that's somebody that's ready to grow. That's somebody that's going to help you go from a run season to that roll season. And that's the ones you continue to invest in and pour in, and they're going to help everyone else rise up and grow. I think you see why I was excited about today's episode. We're going to wrap up for today, but same thing. You always know, how these things work, right? If you found any value, go ahead, share it with somebody, continue these conversations, reach out to me. All the links are in the description below. If you have any questions, we do this because we see that there's a need in leadership space for healthy leadership. And I know I'm not the only voice, but I will continue to be a voice in this space. And if that resonates with you, I appreciate you going ahead and sharing this with a friend, sharing this on social media, following, subscribe. You know how all of this stuff works. If it makes sense to you, don't do it just to do it. Do it because you're really going to engage here. My name is Poʻokela Mossman. I'll see you on the next episode. Aloha.